Welcome everybody to unit number 8. Today we're going to be talking about negotiation skills, how we do with these negotiations in the supply chain. This is a very important unit, not in terms of content, it doesn't have long content, but of course negotiating those kind of supplies is going to be very critical. So let's talk about a little bit of couple things here. So first of all, let's go through our definition. So when we talk about the definitions is two parties trying to reach an agreement. And now, in an ideal world, we can say that the situation is a win-win to everyone, but it's not. In reality, there's hidden agendas, there's issues, legal problems, and sometimes we need to deal with that carefully. So in this case, we are always looking for a sustainable solution for both parties so that everyone is benefited out of it in one way or another, either financially or operational, but we have to think of that. So now the aspects of the negotiation, like I said, what do we need to look at when we start this negotiation? So in this case, we need to know the specifications of the contract, or the specifications of the product that we need, right? So for that one, we already internally we need to be very clear of what kind of goods we want, in what size, volume, specifications in terms of size, measurement, cost, etc. If we have a very good specification, that we already can translate that message very clear to the supplier, and that works very well. And that goes together with when I want those things to be delivered, under what price, under what payments terms, whether it's gonna be on credit or whether it's gonna be paid on cash or once received. We already saw in the previous unit how that can lead to difficult situations in terms of who handles the risk. Also, the same thing in contractual clauses means what is going to be included in the contract, what is legal, what is not, and finally, how are you going to be using those supplies, right? Are we following the property rights properly, or we are leading or using those specifications for other purposes? This happens, for example, with manufacturing with big brands like Nike, Adidas, all of those ones. They have a lot of issues in that one because they use subcontractors for their own production, and then they use the models and designs for other brands because they also manufacture for other brands. So that happens very often. So now in this case, we have the contractual issues. These are multiple. There's an infinity of contractually related issues because in the end, if we have a very vague contract, we can be easily abused. And this one, I give you a very, very simple example of your professional life, not so much of supply chain, but when you decide to go for a job, you're supplying your service to a company. So whenever they don't mention something and says, okay, I want to know how many holidays I will have per year, and they don't specify it, simple as that, that's missing. That's information that is missing. So the next time that you say, well, I want to have some holidays, like, oh, you don't have holidays. Why? It's not on the contract, so I don't have to fulfill that. So the same thing happens with supply chain agreements. In this case, what's going to happen with many things, in case there's any issues, are there going to be any authorities that are going to handle that? Is it just an agreement between privates? Can we think of any leftovers, changes, conditions in the environment? How are we going to deal with all the issues? So when we think positively, that's fantastic because the negotiation can work very well. If we think everything is going to go well, that's fantastic, but it doesn't happen. There's many issues. Just look at the situation now. During COVID-19, many of these agreements are broken, so we have to understand since the very beginning, we have to think very negative and say it since the beginning, there's going to be issues, so let's put it down all on paper so when that happens, we have something to refer to. Usually big companies, they are very strict in terms of their contractual issues. You remember last time we did the Starbucks, and in the Starbucks it was very clear how they want things, when they want it, and what they're gonna do with things that are unwanted. They were very clear about that. Now we have to think of the buyer's negotiation position. when it gets stronger, when they have the upper hand, when they have the power. So the same, there's a couple of things in here. For example, when the demand is not urgent, we don't have the consumer pressuring us. So we have plenty of stock, so we need to decide when to buy and when not. And if we don't have any urgency, we can pay any price. Problem is when we have an urgency. In this case, the supplier is going to say, you need this supply now, and I'm the only supplier, so I can set any price that I want. So again, then the position from the buyer is lost. The suppliers are keen for the business. If we have suppliers and maybe they are new in town, new supplier, or perhaps they're a very small company, so they will try to sell their product at any price. So you may even cut a lot of your profits as a supplier in order to work with that large buyer. Buyer is in a monopolistic position. If you don't buy from me, there's no one to buy, so I'll set the price that I want. Right? There's also substitutes. There's other suppliers, or there's other products that can be used instead of that. We also have make and buy options, which is if you don't supply, I can do it on my own. So remember, sometimes we contract a third party for the sake of making things cheaper, but if they are making it too expensive, then I'll just go back and do it by my own. And then we have the buyer has a reputation for fair dealing. We have dealt that with Costco. Costco has a reputation for fair dealing, so companies wanna do an agreement with them because they know that it's not gonna fail. Then we have finally the buyer has excellent supply market intelligence. They know what they're doing. They have a lot of information, and they know the suppliers available, the prices of everything. So information is power in here. Now, before we start to negotiate, we have to lay out the scenario, what the environment it is, who we're going to be negotiating in. They have the power, I have the power. Venue, so always someone intermediate, neither your turf, neither my turf. Intelligence gathering, as we spoke before. Let's say, for example, I am McDonald's. So McDonald's has plenty of intelligence of everything because they know information is power. So what they're going to do is very simple, is gather all that intelligence about that certain supplier and try to have the upper hand. These three together: negotiation, objective, strategy, and tactics. What I want to achieve, how am I going to achieve it, and if I cannot achieve it in a certain way, how can I push in different ways, right? So that leads us to the conducting dummy runs, which is trials. So let's say scenario A. I'm going to set the deal to get the lowest price as possible. If that doesn't happen, I have alternative B to medium price, but in this case, I want the quality of the product to be much better. So in this case, we have different scenarios of what could possibly happen. And here we have decision nuts. In those decision nuts, we always think what is probably the best decision. So we have the stages of negotiation. So first of all, we already decided to meet. We're going to talk about who we are, what we want, why we decided to carry out this negotiation. We are going to set up within the negotiation terms what is right and what is not, because if we go out of that range, that means I don't want to negotiate anymore, right? If you're trying to set a production level that is out of my capability, I cannot sit down anymore, and that's the negotiation range. Until what extent I can comply and not. Then we have the agreement common goals, the same thing. Okay, you want to achieve this volume, I want to achieve this price. So how can we do that together? Then we have identification and removal of barriers. So in this thing, let's say, for example, you want me to produce X amount of units in the next 6 months. The problem is that I don't have the money to buy all the raw materials in advance. So what is the barrier in here? I don't have that capital. So if you give me the payment in advance, I can fulfill that order. And we go back to contractual negotiations. So lend me that money first or pay it in advance and I'll supply this. But if I don't supply this, then how am I going to pay you back? Maybe in assets or what? How am I going to pay back? So in this case goes a negotiation, no? So how much is too much and how much is too little? And then we go lastly to the agreement and closure, which is, okay, I agree to those terms to negotiate to supply in X amount of months under this price. I'm gonna give you some money in advance. We agree to that, and that works very well. So now we have hallmarks of effective negotiation. So in this case, when is likely that the negotiation will go well? That means if we have smart thinking. No, if we think of abusing the other party, that already starts the negotiation very wrongly. Second thing, when the negotiation happens quickly but effective. Sometimes it's very quickly but ineffective because for trying to get a quick deal, we get abused, and that's not well. It was harmonious, the same thing in terms of everybody tried to do it amicably, and we are thinking of the long term. Talking about the long term, we have to survive the short term, because if the short term the things are not dealing well, how can we expect that to work in a long term? And trust has been set up on both sides. I'll give you this, you give me that. That's how I can trust you. If you're willing to put your assets or put your payments or put even your customers on the line for me, I'll pay it back with my trust by supplying in this way. So give me as much as you can and I'll give you as much as I can, so we can reach that trust. Trust is also built by the companies in advance. When some companies already, like I said, like a Costco, they build a reputation for that. And in every part of their negotiation contracts, they make sure that everything is crystal clear. There's no hidden agendas. Now, ethics in negotiation. This is very tricky. As you can see in the image in here, we have, I give you the hand, but behind, I have a hidden agenda. So deceitful tactics are used. It means you come up with this price and I'm gonna reject it first. Even if it's a good price for me, I will go until 2 or 3 times. I'm gonna play hard with you, right? So that those are tactics that perhaps is not ethical. We should be crystal clear since the very beginning. Secondly, because we are business entities, so I want to make profit for me. If you don't make that profit, that's your business. That's your problem. You know how much you're willing to jeopardize or compromise into that price. So you already know your profit margins. If you're violating your profit margins, that's not on my business. But that doesn't work very well. Actually, it should be, let's pay a fair price for what you're doing, and then if I pay a fair price, you also, of course, you can continue to do your business. That is something that, for example, the company, the Body Works, was doing fair trade with paying all the agriculture's fair price for their products, which doesn't happen too much in many industries. They abuse badly all the producers of raw materials. Same thing, ethics, it's an ideal. In reality, human is not nice. So companies are not nice. They are there to make money, not to make the world better. Yeah, there are some companies that, of course, they have fair trade and that works very well, but ideally that is still utopic. That concept is still utopic. Then sharing information is a disadvantage because I open my books for you, but opening my books means you know my weaknesses. And how are you going to use my weaknesses and say, okay, this company cannot provide this financial stability over the next few years. So if I ask them to make the price much lesser, they're not going to survive. So that means I can negotiate the price I want. So, and that becomes an issue because, again, because they share that information, they know that weaknesses of my financials over the short or long term. Then we have different cultures have different values. Some of them is about trustworthy. Some of them is that look after yourself. Be selfish. And finally, verifying data is almost impossible. Sometimes, as much as a supplier says, I am financially stable, I can produce X amount number of units, I have to trust them because I cannot look into their books. We go back again to the sharing information. So some companies don't want to do it, and I have to trust it. And again, goes through the ethical actions of that company. How ethical is that company? So with that, we close for this unit. Something important about this unit, I want you to really watch this video. This is about Star Wars and Disney. Is a very interesting video. The reason why, because they had to do a lot of negotiations. They had to really give and take a lot in order for this to happen. So in this case, we're talking about Disney and Star Wars as a supplier of content. Disney needed a product that they can squeeze, and Star Wars was a good answer for them. So watch this video, and probably this unit will make a lot of sense after you watch this video. Yeah, it takes some time, but again, this is about how much you want to learn. Okay, so thank you so much, and then look at your unit quiz. Please read your quizzes carefully because some of you are just waiting for last minute to do it, and then that's not working very well for anyone. Thank you so much, and then I'll see you next week.